Hello, art history class. Today I'm going to be breaking down some of the fundamentals that Claude Monet used in one of his most iconic pieces. So as you can see on this first slide, this is a self-portrait of Claude Monet when he was a little bit younger. And I'm going to be touching base a little bit on the paper that I wrote based upon how he was the founding father of the Impressionism movement and kind of how he started a lot of the techniques that we see in pieces that are inspired by him today. So Claude Monet was very famous for his use of a new perspective. So our next slide, we are going to be diving into some of the fundamentals of Impressionism and kind of how he used that to display his view of nature. Now, we did learn a little bit about Monet in previous lectures given in the class, but I'm going to be touching base a little bit more on a prominent piece that we did not get to touch base on in kind of the last couple of years of his life, which consisted of a lot of naturalistic paintings of the place that he resided in, France. So this particular piece that we are looking at right now, we did see in class, which is a very impressionistic art piece that we looked over. We can see that it is definitely a perspective of what Monet saw when he was outside painting in nature. So we do know that Impressionism was very, very different than what we were used to. Before this given movement, we do know that a lot of individuals had very heavy, historical, prominent pieces. We do know during this movement that it was very different, as in different colors, very bright, vibrant, and it was a new perspective and a new interpretation of the abstract of the nature world around, which Monet was very famous for. And a little bit later in the lecture, I will show you one of his most iconic pieces called the Waterlily Pond Green Harmony, based upon a part of his place that he resided in a few years before he had passed away in France. So this is Giverny, France, and this is where Monet and his family resided in the years leading up to his death. He was extremely into gardening and was very into the naturalistic world, and he loved creating pieces which depict his interpretation of them. So in this particular photo, this is the front of his house. You can visit it today. It is absolutely stunning. And when he did reside here, he was going through a change. He was in a lot of debt. He had a lot of trouble during this current era getting commissions. For a lot of the impressionistic artists had a hard time making commissions because their pieces were so out there and they were very different, and a lot of individuals actually turned away from this abstract. So these pieces he created were truly for him, and he created his gardens and these beautiful sceneries around him. So aside from him painting these luscious, extravagant, abstract paintings of the world around him outside, he created some really beautiful elements presented within the real world between gardening, and he worked a lot with structural objects, which I will show you in the next slide. So this is one of his most iconic pieces called the Waterlily Pond Green Harmony, which was a part of a collection of 12 canvases that he did of this particular place on his property where he resided, and it was basically a bridge that he had above this water lily pond, which really symbolizes a lot of things. In the naturalistic world, we think of a lot of things such as the trees that you see, or the water and the lily ponds, and above that you see a man-made structure. So this really breaks between the naturalistic world with the man-made world, which brings everything together in this piece of unity. You can see the light hitting the bridge with the whites and the light blues, and you almost get a sense of movement through the entire painting. The wind blowing because of the light strokes that he used, which he was very famous for using tiny strokes with his paintbrush to depict little tiny dots creating movement through the trees swaying. You can see the plants in the water almost having a little bit of a movement, and you can tell the time of day because of the light that is bouncing off of the bridge. So this piece I found extremely interesting and beautiful. It was one of his all-time favorites, and it was one of the very last paintings that he did before his passing. And I just truly believe that this piece depicted something that artists before had not yet been able to portray in their pieces. So this is Charles Darwin, and Charles Darwin is potentially the individual who really inspired Claude Monet. Claude Monet was very captivated by nature and loved the world around him and everything that was created around him. So Charles Darwin had a theory about natural selection and the evolution of the naturalistic world and things such as animals. In this case, there are no animals presented in this piece, so it's all about the evolution and the changing of nature. So Monet was very, very inspired by Charles Darwin, and he created the Waterlily Pond Green Harmony to enhance our idea of what is within, really shows us ourselves on the outside. So what we perceive when we go outside is truly who we are inside. And as you can tell from our very last slide before this Charles Darwin picture, is that Monet was extremely inspired by the thought that an individual could go outside and pull colors that you typically do not see in nature and pull them out from within. He was a very, very inspiring individual, and I hope that you learned a little bit about Monet and one of his most iconic pieces. Thank you so much for watching.